A lot of those guys are now on they're now on the outside. And the strange thing is, I'd be kind of surprised, I think, if any of them played their way into the squad between now and the next summer.
Jack Pitt-Brooke, England correspondent for The Athletic. Thank you very much for joining. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, no, not at all, not at all. I saw your piece yesterday about Thomas Tuchel having the majority of his starting 11 for England's World Cup squad already in mind. And it struck me that there's a very real chance that there might not be a single United player involved. And then I fell down that rabbit hole and looked into it. And that would actually be the first ever instance of that. England have been at 27 major tournaments, and there's been a United player in every single one of those squads, between I think one and five. In generalities, how do we get here from an England point of view?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? I mean, obviously, United have got quite a few, not just English players, but England internationals who played a lot of football, particularly under Gareth Southgate. Like Maguire was obviously a hugely important player under Southgate. Luke Shaw played quite a lot. Mason Mount played quite a lot, admittedly more when he was a Chelsea player than at United. Kobbie Mainoo came in under under Southgate and then played a bit under Carsley. Um, Rashford obviously was again a really important player under Southgate, is now out on loan. So it's not like these guys have been consistently overlooked. Like they've been a really those players have been a really important part of the England setup in recent years. But for a combination of reasons, I think it's not all to do with form, but I think it is largely to do with form and United's own struggles. I think a lot of those guys are now on they're now on the outside. And the strange thing is, I'd be kind of surprised, I think, if any of them played their way into the squad between now and the next summer.
Well, that's it. I mean, you rightly make the point there about Marcus Rashford. He's technically a United player still. His loan at Barcelona runs until I think June 30th. The tournament starts a couple of days before that. So he may, on a technicality, be a United player at the tournament. I mean, I suppose on that, would you envisage Marcus being involved on with things the way they are?
I definitely think he'll go. I think that Tuchel has put a lot of faith in him. He called him. He was one of he called him up in that first squad he picked in March of this year when Marcus was on loan at Aston Villa. When it kind of felt at that point like his England career might be over. Southgate dropped him quite ruthlessly, um, and then he hadn't been involved with England for a while. But I think Tuchel knew that Rashford on a good day is a really, really good player, and so he's put a lot of faith in him. He's picked him an awful lot. He's not really been rewarded with goals and assists. I don't think that Rashford's been as good as he can be. He's shown flashes, as United fans will know, flashes of how dangerous he can be without a lot of productivity. I think he's got a lot of competition from Anthony Gordon, who's done, I think probably he's done better for Tuchel so far this season for England. Eberechi Eze came on and played on the left wing last night and scored a fantastic goal against Serbia. So I think he's in the mix as well. So I don't think I don't think it's nailed. I don't think it's nailed on that Rashford would start. I would probably just about back him to start the World Cup. But I do think that given how much faith Thomas Tuchel has shown in him so far, I do think he will end up being in the squad for the US.
Fair enough. And then on Tuchel, he's not had a huge amount of time, really, has he, to sort of figure out that much about who he wants in the squad. It's just been a case of, right, okay, just games, constant games, and he's been pretty loyal to the ones who've come in, hasn't he? If we can make a case, I'm sorry, if we can look at it on like a case by case basis, what would have to happen in your opinion for Kobbie Mainoo to get involved again? Because obviously his latest, I think his last England game was under Lee Carsley against Ireland.
Yeah, so Mainoo played one game under Carsley, which was that 2-0 win against Ireland in Dublin in September last year, but that was his only appearance under Carsley. I think Carsley then moved towards, well, another former United player, Angel Gomez, to play in that role. I think the problem that Mainoo's got is Elliot Anderson and Adam Wharton. Elliot Anderson has played England's last 5 games on the spin. I think he's been really, really good. He was really good again last night. I think he will definitely start in the World Cup. Wharton's obviously a really popular player. I think he's an amazing player, Wharton. I love watching him play. I think he's got every chance of being in the squad as well. And Mainoo's not really playing that much for United, is he? So I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, it's going to be difficult for Mainu to. He's going to have to get his place back at United, perform really well, and then make a case to Tuchel that he should go ahead of Wharton or Anderson. So at the moment, I think it's not looking good for Mainu to be in that World Cup squad.
In your piece where you identify the sort of the possible vacancies in the starting 11, left back was one. Now Luke Shaw, he started the season well, obviously not at left back, but a left centre back. Do you think maybe his experience and versatility might come into play?
I thought they would have done, but they haven't yet, and I suspect that means they probably won't. I'd be surprised if he gets called up in March, for example. It's interesting because Tuchel doesn't have like a lot of great options there. He doesn't really have many natural left backs, does he? Like like Jed Spence has played a fair bit there. He's naturally a right-sided player. Lewis Skelly has played a fair bit there. He's lost his place at Arsenal, so he's out the squad. Tino Livramento has played a bit. I think he's been pretty good, but he's injured at the moment. Nico O'Reilly played last night. He was pretty good too, but it's not like England have got an experienced specialist left back option. So I did think Shaw would get back in, but he hasn't, and I don't know why. I don't really know why that is. I wonder if it might be fitness concerns. Clearly that was a big fitness was a big issue during the end of the Southgate era. Everybody remembers, he kind of he got taken to the Euros last summer. He wasn't fully fit, got brought in to start the final. Didn't really look fully, I don't think he really looked fully fit in the final either. Um, but yeah, I think the fact that, Tuchel's had, this is his fifth England camp now. He hasn't, I don't, as far as I remember, he hasn't called up Luke Shaw. So I suspect that that means that he's not going to change his mind and bring him back in March.
Okay, on a similar vein, I suppose the case for Harry Maguire would be that experience, but how do you see that one panning out?
Yeah, I mean, again, Maguire was such an important player throughout the Southgate era, like he's one of those players, I guess, at both at international and at club level. He's a player who often gets written off and then always gets back into the picture. So I think he's been an amazing servant to England over the years, but I feel like Tuchel probably felt like he wants to go in a slightly different direction. He does have experience because he's got Stones. Like as long as Stones is fit, Stones obviously got even more England experience than Maguire. They were the sort of bedrock of the Southgate team, going all the way back to the 2018 World Cup. But then Gahey and Konsa are also quite experienced too. Like Gahey started almost every game in the Euros last summer. Konsa was involved in the Euros last summer as well, and they're both really established Premier League players with good records in the top flight. So I don't think I think that like the experience-based case for Maguire is probably not as strong now as it might have been, say, a year ago when I still think it's kind of mad that Southgate didn't take Maguire to Germany to
Mm.
the Euros last summer just because England had less experience then. I think that Southgate's dropping of all the experienced players was a bit of a disaster, really. So yeah, I would have taken Maguire last summer, but at the moment, again, like if he was gonna, so it's similar to Shaw, really, like whatever you might think the case for Maguire is, if Tuchel was going to pick him, I think he would have picked him by now. And I think the fact that he hasn't picked him makes me think that he's probably not going to get back in between now and the World Cup.
And I suppose, Jack, the final sort of last wild card that I could throw into the mix will be Mason Mount, just because when he's fit, he's an important player for United. There is that link from Tuchel with Chelsea from their Chelsea days together. Can you see any circumstance under which, I mean, England are so well stocked at 10, aren't they? Can you see any circumstance under which he might get involved?
I'd be surprised. I mean, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because if you'd asked me like 3 years ago, I everybody would have said that Mason Mount would end up playing tons and tons of games for England. He looked really, really settled and established under Southgate. He played a lot in the Euro 2020, went to the World Cup in 2022, but I don't think he's really kind of clicked since that move to Manchester United. And you're right, like England, the pecking order there is so competitive. And Tuchel doesn't want to just take players he likes. He wants clear competition for every position. And last night Morgan Rogers started as number 10. I suspect Bellingham will probably start at number 10 in Albania on Sunday. And then, Foden can play there, although he played as a false nine last night. Cole Palmer is injured at the moment, but I think will come back into the picture. Eze as well has played there under Tuchel and may play there again. So Morgan Gibbs-White is not in this squad, but is again a player that Tuchel really likes and has been there. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was in the last squad, didn't play. So there's a lot of good players there, and I just think maybe if Mount has a brilliant second half of the season, plays every game, plays really well, then maybe he can get himself in for the friendlies in March and then for the World Cup. But I feel like Tuchel is quite focused on the players that he has been picking, particularly in the last three camps. I would be surprised if Mount manages to make a case to come in and start in the World Cup, or to come in and be in the squad for the World Cup rather.
Okay, so from the United point of view, it's relatively bleak. Or from the positive side, a summer off for the England boys.
Summer, yeah. I mean, like, look, in modern football, a summer off can be very valuable. Like, if you remember,
Yeah,
for a lot of these players, they played, well, they had the Qatar World Cup. I mean, if you just look at the schedule from the last few years, it's been horrific. Like,
yeah,
players had a Euros in 2021, then they had the summer off 22, but then they had a mid-season World Cup in 22, 23, then they had another Euros in 24. A lot of them had a Club World Cup in 25, which is effectively a World Cup. Like, you're playing all the way through June and July. Then they're going to have another World Cup this summer. Um, so it might be, and like this is obviously has knock-on effects on the regular club season in terms of the level of performance and the injuries that players pick up. So I really think that it will be to the benefit of teams who don't have a lot of players at that World Cup, because there's going to be tons of Premier League players who are playing in the World Cup all the way through June and July. Also, remember, it's an expanded World Cup. It's a 48 team World Cup, and that rather than 32. That means to win it, you've got to play 8 games rather than seven. And so there's going to be so many Premier League players, from if you've got anyone from Argentina, Spain, France, England, Germany, the chances are those guys are going to come back for pre-season, like at the end of July, start of August, maybe, when you're trying to, when the Premier League's just around the corner, they'll be exhausted. They've played 7 or 8 games in the heat. Plus, like playing in a World Cup, as we know, takes a big mental and emotional toll on players. It means so much to them. It's difficult for them to get back into their heads into club football. So, from a strictly Man United perspective, I don't think it's the worst thing for United players to be on a beach in Sardinia in June and then straight back to pre-season when it starts again.
yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. Jack, thanks so much for your time. Gentlemen, really appreciate it.